Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone.
As the Director of Medic, I would like to warmly welcome you to Imperial College London's inaugural Global Creative Competition Awards ceremony. This afternoon, we welcome our amazing medical students who have generously shared their creative talents with us. A warm welcome to their families who have joined us today, who have supported and guided them, to their medical schools who have nurtured them. We welcome our judges and our shortlisters who have shared their time with us when time has felt very short. And we welcome you, our audience, for supporting our medical students, our future doctors.
I am Noor Hooby, a fifth-year medical student at Imperial College. This competition started on an uneventful Friday in lockdown, where I sketched a personal family experience that had taken place during the pandemic. And without much thought, I had shared this comic with my mentor and inspiration, Sonia Kumar, expecting a comment back or possibly a smiley face. A week later, we were on a Zoom call with the Medic team planning a global creative competition. I feel extremely grateful to be at a place like Imperial College, a place where small ideas are supported and contributions are welcomed and encouraged.
The pandemic has had an unprecedented impact on all of us, our jobs, our lives, our families. It really has touched all of us in so many ways around the world. At Medic, we strive to bring together education and societal impact. And so what we wanted to do with this competition was create a platform for medical students to come together around the world to reflect and share their personal and professional experiences during this extremely challenging time.
We launched the Global Creative Competition over the summer, and we received 650 entries from 52 countries. This speaks to the magnitude that the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on our global community of medical students.
So from our hearts, we want to thank all of our medical students who shared their time and masterpieces with us. And we thank you for all being here today, for us now to share them with you. So it now gives me great pleasure to introduce our winners, starting with the runner-up from the visual category. Our judge to award the first prize is Noor. Over to you, Noor.
So the runner-up in the visual category is Missed Calls by Serena Ramji from Barts and the London School of Medicine, United Kingdom. So huge congratulations to Serena. This was a really amazing piece of art. Could you please tell us what inspired you to create it?
Mic's not working, my mic's not working, my mic's not working, my mic's not working.
We seem to have, we have the microphone. Serena, if you'd like to give you...
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. So like many other people during lockdown, you know, I had a real hit on my mental health, and I have a history of depression, and I've usually found that being around people and socializing has really been a great way to lift my mood. But, you know, in lockdown, that wasn't really possible. And in addition, you know, everybody kind of moved onto social media and everyone was talking online. And, you know, I was already having a lot of trouble with my mental health at that point. And because of that, I didn't have a lot of energy. And I found kind of having to be on my phone all the time and having to always, you know, be online very overwhelming. But I think I felt some guilt associated with that because, you know, it was such a abnormal time for everybody and everybody was very nervous. So I felt like I kind of had to be on my phone all the time. And I think I had this lack of energy. I was trying to be on my phone all the time, and it just kind of created this cycle. I wake up the next day, I'd have less energy, and it kind of got to this point where I just shut off and completely isolated myself. And this is kind of what the painting represents, you know, being isolated by yourself, as well as kind of the pressure of having to be on your phone all the time and the pressure of always kind of interacting.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal experiences with us, Serena, and what an amazing piece of art. And back to you, Sonia.
Thank you, Noor. Now, as you know, we only plan to have one winner in this visual category. However, last week when the judges met, they honestly found it impossible to pull these next two art pieces apart. And so we will be awarding two joint winners in the visual category. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next judge who will be awarding these prizes, Professor Ashley Hall. Ashley is a Professor of Design Innovation at the Royal College of Art. He is the head of the MRes Healthcare Design Programme and postgraduate research in the School of Design. Ashley, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first winner. So the first winner in this category is a work called Thrive by Akelele Enda from the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon. So this was an amazing piece of work actually, and this is going to come up on the screen soon. I think actually for all of the judges, it was a very emotional process, and this work in particular, you can see the sort of quality of the drawing, the rendering, and the emotional impression. So I think this was a really wonderful winner. And what I'd like to do now is maybe invite Akelele, if you're on the line, if you'd like to maybe share some of your thoughts or ideas for this artwork as well with us. That would be very nice.
Thank you very much for considering me. So firstly, when I looked at the global effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, the way the world was struggling to manage it, and the way the world is still struggling to manage it, it seems so ironical for me that 21st century medicine, with all the advances, technologies, and all the like, we could be challenged this much by such a virus, which, as we are told, can be prevented by simple everyday measures like hand washing, wearing of masks, and all the like. It seems so ironical to me, and it made me weep a little. That's one reason for the tears on the piece. Then secondly, when I consider the stress of being a medical student, and particularly the struggles of being a medical student in a third world country like my own Cameroon, it's so challenging. It's so challenging. And then you add that to the heavy impact of the pandemic. It was beyond. So with all the time I had, I thought of how to voice it out. And I came up with this piece called Thrive, where we have a medical doctor, that's the person on the left. We have a medical doctor who here represents my mentors in the medical field, all the medical personnel on the front line, and how I see myself in future. And on the right, we have a medical student, which is myself. And we have both mourning, crying, and weeping the loss of lives due to the COVID, particularly all the medical personnel who have died trying to help others. It can be so discouraging. And at the same time, we have the doctor reassuring the student, which is myself, reassuring myself that if I can look more towards the relentless efforts of those on the front line and the dedication of my seniors, and remain optimistic, eventually we are going to thrive. That's the title of the piece, Thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Akelele, for that wonderful description of your artwork. It's really very inspiring. So we'd now like to move on to announce the second joint winner in the visual category. And the winner in this category is Megan Knock from Oxford University in the UK. And so huge congratulations, Megan. And we're about to see your artwork coming up soon. Again, this was something which I think was a very powerful and emotional choice for the judges. and especially, you know, seeing this this lady looking out into the sort of you know, lockdown world, which is empty outside of her window, and all these kinds of hints of atmosphere around the view as well. So very, very powerfully drawn. So Megan, if you're here, it would be great to hear something from you.
So unfortunately, Megan is having some technical issues that we've tried to resolve, but we haven't been able to. So I'm going to read out part of the reflection that she submitted with her piece. My painting shows an image of my great aunt looking out of the window as she remained inside, what became her new normal, with the constant reminders of how she and many others in the high and extremely high risk group were at immense risk of severe illness, even death. There was no hiding from the gravity of the situation. Yet for those shielding, the desire to go out was immense, as they were forced to remain in, pounding them with sorrow, depression, and anxiety. It felt as if they had been disregarded by the government, left to do their own thing as the virus targeted every vulnerable and old individual. Could it be more isolating? How much turmoil can someone go through before being allowed to hug their grandchild again? My painting aims to highlight the drastic flip of life for those shielding. She looks through the window, longing to return to normality, to breathe the fresh air, to feel at ease once again. She leans close to the window, her glasses in her hand, hungry for the life that was. With the face mask wrapped around her chin like a necklace around the neck, the constant presence of coronavirus is illustrated. Volunteering to phone vulnerable patients over lockdown, I felt for myself how shielding can variably impact people. I know as a future doctor, it is paramount to not paint each patient with a broad brush, but to see everyone as a whole. Okay, so thank you, Ashley, and congratulations to all of our extremely well-deserved winners. I'm sure at home and everyone here, the judges and the rest of the students, if we all give our winners in the visual category an applause. Okay, moving on. We are now going to announce our runners-up and winners in the literary category. Noor.
Thank you, Sonia. So we will now award the literary category runners-up and winners. To award our first runner-up, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dan Simpson. Dan is a writer, performer, producer and educator, and currently the poet in residence at Imperial College London. He has performed around the world, including Glastonbury Festival, Chicago's Uptown Poetry Slam, So Far Sounds in Auckland, and on the BBC. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much. Yes, we judged the poetry side, the literary side of the competition. And again, it was really hard for us to choose winners and runners up. But we were so moved and touched by the reflections in text from the medical students from around the world. So I'm really delighted to give the runner-up award to Aditi Vakil for the poem Pandemonium, and she's from the University of Nairobi in Kenya. And we're really excited to hear the pieces this afternoon as well.
Hi, thank you. I'll start off with reading the poem. So, 3 short months is all the while, or should it just count as one instant? For the time it took for this all to begin, for the birth of the change of the world? A dry cough in December, 2 aches and a slight fever, rendered helpless human armies of healers. The normal shattered, millions battered, new meaning has earth now gathered. And all those things we learn about, public health and biostatistics, turned practical now, every formula in play, instruction in the most painful of ways. While countless battles, removed of the illness, drown together in the gasps for a breath, and mortal spirits, pushed to the limits, flounder now to make it to the next minute. Whoever could have imagined this? At the very least, not me, which is why it's hope I now court. If something this horrific could befall man so quick, without so much as a flicker of warning, Who's to say so too can't hold true for something as equally good?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aditi, for that wonderful poem. Could you please tell us a bit more about what inspired you to write it?
Yeah. So it's actually a couple of different elements that came together, and it started with the end, funnily enough. I was just thinking about how when something negative happens in life, we have so much resistance to it, but when good stuff happens, we don't really question it. So there's that sort of asymmetry between taking it easy when the good stuff and not really going so well with it when it's negative. And the other thing is, whenever we're in a tough time, we're told to have faith or to just believe blindly that, things will pick up. But we struggle to do that. We always want proof, we don't just, it's very hard to just think that, oh, maybe things will pick up until we see something that proves that something good could happen. So those thoughts, I think my subconscious just put them together and decided, the pandemic is as big a thing as can be. And the fact that it's happened is as much proof as could ever exist that big things can happen overnight. And so I was just thinking, why don't we flip the whole asymmetry thing and symmetrically think that this is proof for good things to happen as well? So I think that was the main thought behind it. And then there was just a couple of other things, like when school shut down, we had just finished our public health rotation. So we'd learned all these things, like literally public health, biostatistics, epidemiology, health management systems. So we'd always just imagine these things, but all of a sudden they become headlines. Things that are in our notes become headlines and sub-headlines every single day. So it was a practical lesson on something that unfortunately became practical. So that was another thought. And then the third thing that I'd like to draw your attention to is when I was talking about countless battles removed from the illness, it was a moment that struck me when I read about the skyrocketing teenage pregnancies in Kenya, especially. And then I also read about patients missing cancer screening and missing their treatments. And it made me realize that there's so many other aspects of the healthcare system that are falling short just because the pandemic has taken over. So yeah, those were, I think, the main things.
Thank you very much for that, Aditi. So now we will go on. So now, as you all know, we plan to only have one winner in the literary category. However, like with the visual category, the judges found it impossible to choose between these next two pieces. So we will be awarding two joint winners in the literary category. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our next judge, Rosamund Lupton, who will be awarding these prizes. Now, Rosamund Lupton is the author of 4 best-selling novels. Her first novel, Sister, was translated into 30 different languages. Her most recent novel, titled 3 Hours, is a Sunday Times top 10 bestseller and is also the best book of 2020. Over to you, Rosamund.
Thank you so much, Noor. The first winner of the literary category is Before You Leave by Yoshua Salvadaro, University of New South Wales, Australia. It's a really wonderful poem. It's beautiful and multi-layered. And Yoshua, I think you're going to read it for us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for those sweet words. Before you leave. Spheres of soap glitter and sparkle, holding small rainbow-streaked worlds in their spinning orbs, before sinking and dying on the cold porcelain. Hands washed, mask fixed, I enter your hospital room. With eyes closed, you sense my presence. Grey eyes flutter open, blinking like those fairy penguins who emerge shuddering from the Contra Bay. We laughed together that day at their gentle confusion. From 2 meters apart, our gazes meet, holding shimmering moments beyond these walls. When seagulls rose on thermals, ancient acacias shook in warm ocean breezes, and our feet traced known paths. Now I feel your need for insight, some sign on this new uncharted trail from your grandson who knows, well, who ought to know, how to return, restore, renew. Your hair poignantly neat, your arms obediently still, you await revelation. I am numb, my voice is lost. Standing on the cliff's edge, I see the waves crash on the dark rocks below. Scared to be reminded, scared to forget, a lifetime of memories coalesce, flash, and tremble within me. Learning to swim at Sister's Beach, your arms holding me beneath warm emerald waves, soft ribbons of water threading my hair. But now, I cannot be the same for you. At the foot of your bed, I feel myself shuddering, falling. A wordless scream shakes the walls. No one can hear. Without you near, my greatest fear. We are two hearts intertwined. You are the reason I am. My soul is clinging onto this moment. I do not know what to say before you leave.
It's such a wonderful, wonderful poem. Can we applaud that a minute, because I just think it's fantastic. I'd really like to know, Joshua, your kind of what inspired you to write this poem? What were the motivations behind it?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So writing for me has always been a way for me to process pain. So when my grandmother was diagnosed with COVID-19 in Tasmania, my initial reaction was to write because I was shocked, confused, and numb. But creating the poem enabled me to engage with my feelings and find some kind of solace. And that solace came through remembering and immortalizing the beautiful moments we shared together. Like small moments of joy and connection, which at the time didn't seem a big deal, but in hindsight became really important and sustaining for me. I especially focused on our experience in the mountains and oceans of Tasmania to try and convey the sense of timelessness that is found in both nature and loving relationships, and how this can help transcend the pain of the past, like even if it's only for a moment. I also wanted to express the challenge that many medical students face of trying to support their family and whilst having little knowledge themselves. So I wanted to convey the dichotomy between just being a grandson who wants to spend time with his sick grandmother, but also being a medical student who's expected to provide information. And I also have friends affected by COVID, and sharing my poem with them and seeing how it resonated with their own story was really gratifying. And it reminded me and us that even in times of isolation and uncertainty, when there was a tendency to believe that the challenges we faced were unique and divergent, that we all share a common pain and ultimately all rely on the love of family and friends. So writing the poem really comforted me and helped me to remember the emotional ties that bind us and that will always bind us.
Thank you so much, Joshua. It was really wonderful to hear. I loved your poem. Now for the second joint winner in the literary category, it is A Man I Never Knew by Elisa Baggott, Norwich Medical School in the UK. Huge congratulations, Elisa. This is a poem that cut straight to my heart, and I think you can read it for us.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to write and submit the poem as well. So my poem is A Man I Never Knew, and it goes like this. You still cross my mind every day, those 12 hours. The way your chest rose and fell, the way your fingers twitched, the way your family's prayers comforted you throughout the night. In the first hour, I felt your pulse, beating, weak, albeit present, and your hand was lukewarm. A ventilator pumped life into you, a tube fed you, a line medicated you, but you were at peace. In the last hour, your pulse had gone, empty and cold against my skin. I held your hand and you held mine, until you were brave enough to let go. I said goodbye to a man I didn't even know, a hard goodbye.
Huge congratulations. I think that's a clap from me there. Just wonderful. Thing of your inspiration, what's behind this poem?
So during lockdown in about April or between April and May, I had the opportunity to work at the Nightingale Hospital in London as a clinical support worker. The whole thing, as I'm sure many people know, was an intensive care unit for COVID-19 patients. And I didn't have many shifts there. The hospital wasn't open for that long. But in the shifts that I did have, there was one that particularly hit my heart. I'm only a second year medical student. I haven't had that much clinical experience yet with patients, but this particular patient on a night shift was my first experience of basically watching a patient pass away. And even over the span of just 12 hours, you could see their vital signs declining and there was nothing you could do. The shift before my night shift, the patient's family were informed that this patient was likely not going to last through the night, and they were able to visit before my shift started, so I didn't get to see their family. But during the course of the night shift, they'd asked for kind of like Arabic prayers to basically be on for the whole night as the patient passed away. And during the whole of the 12 hours, in the background, we had computers at every bedside unit, and we had these Arabic prayers playing for the whole night. And the family of the patient had also brought in cards from the family, various photos, and it really just made the whole experience so personal. And it's definitely, in the future, when I become a doctor, it's definitely going to make me see every individual so individually, and it just puts a lot more meaning into why I'd like to be a doctor one day.
Thank you so much, Elisa. And back to you, Noor.
Thank you so much, Rosamond, and congratulations to all our extremely well-deserved winners in the literary category. And thank you to our judges, including Professor Parveen Kumar, who was unable to attend the event today, but helped in the shortlisting. And to all of our shortlisters, thank you for all your help. And a special thank you to Imperial College for supporting our idea and helping us run today's event.
Thank you, Noor. So that's brought us nearly to the end of the awards ceremony. A thank you to our audience for attending and supporting us today, to Sam Phillips in the background for crafting today with precision, to Tom Durley, who's worked calmly and patiently behind the scenes, and of course to Noor, our medical student. Without your Friday afternoon inspiration and imagination, none of this would have happened. A thank you to all of our medical students. Of course, today we've just seen a selection of them who entered the competition. We really had many, many moving entries, and it was really quite a challenge to choose between the final few. So in a moment, we're going to share with you some of the pieces that were highly commended by the judges. And to play us out, we're going to have a wonderful piece of music, the first Moonray, composed by Purashini Patha from the University of Manchester. And she composed this piece in response to the pandemic. So we're going to hear that, a real treat at the end just now. So, but lastly, and most importantly, a thank you to all of our future doctors for sharing your experiences and talents so bravely, openly, and honestly with us. Despite everything we are going through and feeling at the moment, you really do give us hope that tomorrow will be a brighter and better day. Thank you very much. So sorry, I think we're just waiting. We're having a little glitch. We're just waiting for the music to be played and for us to see the final highly commended images. So I think if we're unable to hear the music, maybe we can just play the images, Sam. So everyone, as you can see, we had some really amazing finalists that we just weren't able to offer the final prizes to. Unfortunately, the music we are having some technical issues with, so we won't be able to share the music with you during this end of the event. We will continue to play the images for those of you who want to stay and view them, but that brings us to the end of the ceremony today. So that's a goodbye from myself and a goodbye from all of the judges. Thank you.